Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel where today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different and fun. I often talk in my videos about undertones and why my blue undertones on my own skin kind of keep me from using a lot of really dark blue and purple shadows. And I had a subscriber give me a very specific request where we did a good eye versus a bad eye sort of thing. So that's what we're going to do today. If you're new here, hello, my name is Rachel. I'm a homeschooling stay-at-home mom. I really like to play with colorful eyeshadow and I upload multiple videos every week. It's always eyeshadow related stuff, so if you're interested in that, don't forget to subscribe before you leave. And now let's get started with this video. The subscriber who asked for this video is named Danielle, and let me read you exactly what she said, and I'll put the comment in the screen as well. She said, I think it would be interesting to see a look done, one side using tones that work for your skin tone, and one side that doesn't complement your skin tone, and explaining why you chose what you did. Love your vids, keep up the great work. Thank you, Danielle, for a very encouraging comment, but also a very great suggestion. I thought this was a really cool idea. And I will say, Danielle requested this back in September. The reason that I'm filming it so much later is because while I do obviously consider subscriber requests, I also have to consider my schedule. And I have a couple small children, I'm pregnant, due in a couple of weeks, and I don't always have large chunks of time to film. So I waited until January when my husband is out of town for almost the whole month, because I knew that I would have lots of free evenings to do a second video in the day. Doesn't matter if my eyes don't match. I've already primed my eyes using the Glamlight Icing Primer, and let's get started. Let me tell you what some of my thoughts are for this video. The whole point of this is talking about undertones. So the undertones of our skin and how they work with the undertones of our shadow colors. To that end, I am a little bit less concerned with how the eye look ends up and more concerned with showing you why the undertones make a difference. So I have quite a little handful of palettes here. I have a plan, and my thoughts are to try my best to match the depth of tones. So if I choose a light green matte with undertones that don't work for me, I'd like to have a complementary light green matte with undertones that do work for me. It might not be the most exciting eye look, but I'm trying to match depth so that you guys can see how the undertones really do matter and make a difference. So I'm gonna do good eye, bad eye. And I'm going to start in the Hela palette between Angelica Nyqvist and Oden's Eye. I really love this palette, but there are about 2 shades in here that I very rarely reach for, or I'll just use them as a transition color to blend something else out. I'm going to use both of those shades today. So I'm going to start on the bad eye. I've got a dense blending brush and I'm going into the shade Moss. And I'm going to put this on my inner corner. Now, the reason that this shadow is not great for me is because, let me say it again, I have blue undertones in my skin. If you look at the veins in your wrist and they look sort of bluish or purplish, then you've got blue undertones. And if they look sort of yellow or greenish, then you have yellow undertones. I, for example, have blue undertones. My sister has yellow undertones. So we look good in totally different colors. The reason that this shade right here is not terrible, but it's not the best on me, because it is a very yellow-based green, and the next one that I use is going to be even worse. But this is a yellow-based green. Again, I would happily use this color in conjunction with other colors, but it's probably not the greatest idea for me to put it all over my lid. I mean, as like a one and done sort of thing, it would probably be a mistake. I'm going to take the same brush and now go into the shade Wolf. This is a light brownish matte, but it also has a lot of yellow in it. And those yellow shades just don't look great on my blue undertones, which you'd think that they would, right? You'd think that yellow being opposite the color wheel from blue would work. But because of the way that these tones go together, the brown with the yellow base, they kind of make me look sickly, and that is not ideal. Now I'm going to work on the good side. I've grabbed the Glamlight Dirty Martini palette, and there are 2 shades in here that I want to play with. Again, trying to match the depth of tones. I'm going to take Dirty Martini and then I'm going to take Garnish. So with the same brush, I have color switched it to clear off the powder that's already there. I'm dipping into Dirty Martini and going into the inner corner here. This shade has more of a sage undertone, and when I put it on my eyelid, you see that it looks a little bit springy and minty. It's not super different from the one over here, but it has less yellow in it. Color switch the brush and going into the shade Garnish. I'm going to put Garnish on the outer corner. Now this is obviously more green and the other side is more brown, but I'm going for depth here. I'm just doing the best I can do, and I'm blending Garnish into the outer corner. Now, Garnish definitely does have a little bit of brown in it, but it doesn't have any yellow in it. Now, right away, you can see a big difference. Yes, this side is more brown. I'm going to add brown into both sides to deepen them up, and that will probably bring them a little bit closer together. But do you see the difference so far in the greens? These yellow-based greens make me look a little bit ill, a little bit sickly, whereas these more blue or even some brown-toned greens without the yellow make me look a little bit more lively. For the bad side, I'm going back into the Hela palette and taking a dense blending brush from e.l.f. This is a blending crease brush. I'm taking the shade Decay. Now, this is a shadow that I use pretty often when I'm using the Hela palette. I'm putting this in my outer corner. But it's not the most amazing brown tone for me. It's kind of a yellow undertone to it. It's a little bit of a warmer toned brown. And now I'm not complaining. Like, Angelica Nyquist was the collaborator with this palette, and she has yellow undertones in her skin, so she looks amazing in all of these shadows. But it's something to be aware of when you go to buy a palette, that you recognize the undertones of the shades and the colors, so that you're not buying something that might look amazing on someone else, but then when you try it on yourself, you're like, oh, that was a mistake. And that's something that I experienced a lot in the beginning of my eyeshadow journey, because I was buying palettes that looked so great on other people, and when I put them on myself, I didn't understand why they looked less great, why they didn't work so well on me. Now I understand. It's all about undertones. So here we are with this Decay shade blended into the outer corner, and again, it's not looking bad per se, but everything's, I don't know, kind of dull. It's just not very bright and impactful. Back into the Dirty Martini palette with the same brush. Now I'm taking the shade Extra Dirty. This one doesn't have the yellow in it. This is a brown that's more cocoa chocolatey colored in its undertones. When I combine it with my outer corner here, it's going to deepen up just like the other side, but because of the base of the shadow, it'll look totally different. And yes, I'm combining it with more of a green shade in the outer corner. I get it. It's not going to be exact because I have to work with what I've got. And honestly, at this point, I don't have a lot of shadows that don't look good on my skin tones because I know better. I just don't buy them anymore. I want to deepen these outer corners a little bit more and bring in more tones so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. So first I'm taking the Passion in Paris palette from BH Cosmetics. There's a deep navy blue in this palette, which I pretty much never use at this point. I have a small blending brush. The shadow is called Montmartre, and I'm going into this one for my bad side. I'm going to put this in my very outer corner. I'm kind of going over the brown a little bit, not totally. This kind of color can be very aging on me, be very tiring. It can make me look really worn out because it's actually pretty close to my undertones. Therefore, it doesn't pop. It doesn't stand away from the skin and show up as something more bold or exciting or just different. It kind of blends in the sort of way that bags under your eyes blend in. And that's not really what we want, is it? For the good side, I'm going to take the dark blue matte in the Dirty Martini palette. This is called Mix It Up. And Mix It Up is not a navy-based blue. It's actually a lot more teal. It has a hint of green in it, and it doesn't have that dusty, worn-out kind of undertone. For somebody with yellow skin undertones, the shade in Passion in Paris would be beautiful because the blue would stand out against their yellowy skin. But for me, with the blue undertones, the blue just looks weary. It just looks like I haven't gotten enough sleep and is not flattering at all. Whereas this blue right here, which is probably a little bit hard to see, but it's more of a teal-based blue. It has a bit of green in it, kind of a foresty, deep Caribbean depths sort of thing. It doesn't have that navy undertone. It still brings the depth, but without the fatigue. I really do hope you can see what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to do a bad job over here. I'm trying to get a decent eye look over here, but I'm choosing colors that aren't great on me. I've got a flat brush and I'm going back into the Passion in Paris palette. There's a shade here called Versailles, which I honestly don't think I've ever used it because looking at it, I know that it's not going to be great for me. This is a very black-based blue shimmer. I'm going to load my brush and then spray it. So I'm taking that brush and or that shadow and I'm going to put it on the center of my lid over here. This is a pretty color, but it's not really popping away from my skin. It's just sort of sitting there with a dull shine. You can sometimes attribute that to formula. Some formulas are just more metallic and shiny than others. But this is a great palette and the formula is great across the board. So I know that in this case, it's not formula, it's just the undertones. They're kind of blending into the navy in this outer corner and all sort of merging together in rainy night kind of thing. I'm gonna clean off my brush. And now I want to take the Midnight palette from Beauty Bay. I'm going to go for the shade Bubbles. I think that Bubbles is closest in depth to this Versailles shade. I'm going to dip into the pan and then spray it. So here's the shadow Bubbles. I'm putting this on the good side in the same place. The difference here is that Bubbles is not a black-based shimmer. This Bubbles shade has a silver undertone. First off, it's not totally merging into the outer corner, but if you look at it like just straight on, you see that this side just looks kind of heavy and a little bit darker, whereas this side looks a little bit more uplifted. Yes, it's a different tone. It's not quite the same color, but in terms of depth, I think it's comparable, and yet big difference in undertones. Now I want to bring in some purple, so I'm going to take that same brush, make sure it's wiped off, and I'm going into the Pantheon shade within Passion in Paris. This is a shadow which I use as well. It's not one which I totally avoid, but I have learned to use it carefully and in the right places. So I'm going to spray this on my brush. What I mean by in the right places is learning where the colors can lift my eyes and where they can bring my eyes down and placing them accordingly. So this I'm going to put on the bad side because even though it's a good shadow, I know where it's not going to work, and that's what I want to show you. I'm going to put it on the rest of my lid space, inner corner all the way to meet the blue shimmer. This is a pretty sort of blurple color. It definitely has some purple in it. At this point, I almost never put dark shades on my inner corner because I like the way that a light shade widens the face a little bit and sort of opens it up, and dark shades brings them in and makes you look more closed. So putting dark shadows at all on my inner corner is something which I tend to avoid unless I'm doing a smoky eye or a halo eye. But even then I might do an inner corner highlight or something just to awaken that inner area and pull the onlooker's eye away from the bridge of the nose. And to contrast with that on the other side, again, my personal preference would be to use a light toned shimmer. But since I'm comparing the undertones of comparable depths, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, I'm gonna grab a dark purple shimmer with a better undertone. So with the same brush and from the Dark Fantasy palette from Beauty Bay, I'm taking the shade Nightmare. This is a stunning royal purple shimmer. Oh my goodness, it's so pretty. And it's quite different from the blurply navy-based, black-based shimmer that I just used over here, Versailles, which is a pretty shade. This is a much more rich, royal, majestic sort of purple. It's like kingly robes, and even though it's about the same depth, the undertones make such a big difference because all of a sudden these colors look really alive on me. And even though it is a darker tone at my inner corner, which I generally avoid, look at the difference between the darker tone over here and the darker tone over here. I want to put purple on the lower lash line. Now I'm having trouble finding a purple in a bad tone for me because I actually got rid of most of my purple palettes and I have replaced them with the Midnight palette, which has good purple tones for me. What I want to show in this step is the darkness brought all the way to the bridge of the nose. You guys have already seen examples of good undertones, bad undertones, and since I don't have a purple with a bad undertone that I can think of, I'm just going to use the same color, but I'm going to use it differently. So I'm going to take a small blending brush, and I think I'll go into the shade Voodoo in the Midnight palette, and I'm going to run this on the bad side on my entire lower lash line. If I run a dark tone from the outer corner all the way into the inner corner, visually, it's going to pull your eye to the bridge of my nose. It's also going to make me look quite tired, and even though this exact shade is not necessarily a bad undertone for me, simply by where I place it is going to make a big difference. And do you see how instantly I look more tired? I do look like I've added bags under my eyes. I look like I'm sort of saggy over there. Now I'm going to take that same brush, same shade, and I'm going to put it on the other side, but I'm only going to put it in the outer corner. Then I'm going to do something else. So I'm putting this in the outer third. You guys see me do this all the time. I do this all the time. Dark color in the outer third, and then I stop it there. Now, if I don't do anything else, you see that it adds dimension and depth over here, but it doesn't pull my eye in like this because there's just lightness over here. So because I do want to bring shadow into my lower lash line, but I don't want to bring dark shadow in, I'll take the same blending brush and I'm going to go into a light tone purple now. This is the shade Tranquil, and I'm going to place this starting at my inner corner and drag it out to meet the dark purple matte. Now do you see the difference? I used the same color. Voodoo was on both of these lower lash lines, but here I brought it all the way in, and here I just left it out here, and then I brightened the lower lash line, still using purple, still using shadow. It's not naked skin, but the colors and the placement make a huge difference. Now it's time for an inner corner highlight, and I'm not going to do an inner corner highlight at all over here, mainly because I didn't used to do it. That's something I've learned along the way. But today I'm going to use a shimmer, and I'm going back into Passion Paris. I'm going to take a small blending brush and go into the shade Louvre. Louvre is sort of a white shimmer, and it's really good. I dip into this shade all the time for an inner corner highlight. I'm going to show it to you without spraying it first, so you can see. This is the shade Louvre, and I'll just sort of blend it in a little bit to the upper and lower inner corners, but really it's a pop of brightness right there. And I didn't even spray that. That is the power of an inner corner highlight. Pairing it with the lightness of the lower lash line especially, but just in general, to put that pop of brightness at the very inner corner where it touches the bridge of my nose opens up my face a little bit more. So you can see side by side, I look so tired and weary and a little bit drawn over here between the yellow-based greens and browns and then the really dark navy blues that don't have any silver in them, have a lot of blackness in them, and then bringing the deep dark color all the way to the bridge of my nose without anything to break it up. Everything on this side just looks kind of like I didn't get enough sleep last night. Contrasted with over here, which actually I think is kind of a cool eye look, I've got brighter, more springy greens and teals, and then I've got more cool toned chocolatey kinds of browns. The blues that I used were silver based. The purples that I used were vibrant, true purples as opposed to darker blue or black based purples. And then even though I used the very same color on the lower lash line on both sides, one I brought all the way in, but the other one I kept in the outer corner, and then I brightened the rest of the lower lash line, and then there's the inner corner highlight. I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from now. I'm going to do a waterline color just to finish this up, and then we'll close out the video. For waterline, I'm choosing blue. I've got a dark midnight blue, and then I've got a light bright blue. So you can guess which side the dark midnight blue is going to go on. It's going to go over here. I'm putting it on my entire lower lash line. Doesn't look bad per se, but it doesn't really do anything for me either. Now this is a light blue. By the way, all of these products, all of them, even the 9 million palettes I used, will be linked down below in the description box. This is a light blue, and I'm doing the same exact thing, but the difference in the color is going to make a big difference in how it ends up looking. So this is now standing out against the darkness of the shadows around it, compared to the color of my eye and compared to the bad side. Okay guys, I hope that this video was helpful to you. Do you see the difference? Please tell me that you see the difference, because I can't not see the difference. This has been about a year or two of me just trying different things, learning, experimenting. It's been an interesting process, and honestly, this side is reminding me a lot of when I used the BH Cosmetics Sapphire palette, which was a great palette, fantastic quality, but the undertones were wrong. And every time I used that palette, it was just disappointing, and I didn't know why. But now I know why. You have to mess around, you have to experiment, play with things, try new techniques, find what works for you, your skin tones, your eye shape, your color preferences, your style, your aesthetic. Makeup is a very personal thing as far as what you want to do with your own canvas, right? Your face is your canvas. So experiment, have fun. Thank you so much for being here. Danielle, thank you for the suggestion. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe before you leave, and I'll see you again really, really soon. Bye.